Welcome to For Formula One's Sake, the F1 podcast that's bloody brilliant after you get rid of the usual suspects.
You can't come here and have a go at Chica like that.
It's unbelievable. It is true, but we don't say it.
Welcome to For Formula One's Sake, the F1 podcast that will go as slow as possible.
That was good. That sounded like an effect.
Get in the back of the van.
That was good.
Welcome to For Formula One's Sake, always crying near a barrier.
May make us sad.
I sympathise with George here because I am always crying.
Welcome to For Formula One's Sake. Without flexible wings, we are also slower.
Well, Adrian Newey did design this year's podcast. We've done very well, but it turns out we've been on double speed on everyone's device.
It's very legal.
Welcome to For Formula One's Sake, the podcast F1 deserves. I'm increasingly regular guest host Drew Stearne, and like everyone in Singapore, I'm a hot, sweaty mess. But I'm not in Singapore, so what's my excuse? Why, I'm going full method in reliving the excitement of what may have well been the best race of the year. Red Bull were absolutely nowhere, which made everything better, and we got a glimpse of what life could be like if it wasn't for the general excellence of Max Verstappen and Adrian Newey. We're going to talk about all that, as well as close racing and how not to drive into walls. That's all to come. Joining me is a man who nearly lost his legs. It's Phill Tromans.
What?
About 3 weeks ago, I went to see my sister in Birmingham. We went to the park with my daughter and generally had a lovely time. And I got bitten because it was summer and I was wearing shorts by a couple of eyes. So I was like, oh, okay, fine. I got a couple of bites on my legs. It's fine. About 10 days later, my legs basically started to go rotten, which was a bit weird. It appeared that all of the bites got infected. I got what looked like rashes of bacon under my skin, spreading all the way down my legs. Couldn't really walk. Went to the pharmacy. Very shortly afterwards, decided, no, I think this is a doctor job. And got put on antibiotics. And then within 24 hours of going on antibiotics, they all disappeared again and I could walk. It was very weird.
Oh, and beside him is a man who just got fucking terrified on a train. It's Terry Saunders.
By sheer chance, our stories today, Phil, are quite similar. Because
you bit someone in a park in Birmingham.
In Birmingham. I was in Birmingham a few weeks ago. People ask me, Terry, what's it like living in Berlin? Aren't there a bunch of crazy people there? And you go, yes, there are. And I was just getting on the train back from work. I was working a late shift. And I was going to write the standings on the train, so I apologise in advance that I haven't written them, because I sat down on the train, the UACT, it's a tube train in Berlin. There was a guy sitting opposite me that I can only describe as looking a bit like kind of Terry Pratchett, but creepy, kind of like large beard, black clothes and everything. And the first thing I spotted was the kind of wet patch around his groin. And I'm like, okay, he's one of them. All right, I'll ignore him. And the second thing I noticed was the tarantula on the floor between his legs.
Fucking hell.
And I'm not going to lie, I freaked the fuck out. And I sat and stared at that tarantula for a full 5 seconds. And I was thinking, it can't be real. But then I was just thinking, do you know what? I don't want to find out. So I just stood up and walked to the other end of the train. But the weird thing was, nobody else had either noticed or seemed to care, because it's Berlin. So I sat at the other end of the train expecting, there to be a scream or someone's come running down the train or something, and nothing happened. Like, absolutely nothing. To the point that I started to think, did I just imagine that? And then as I was thinking that, I imagined the tarantula crawling up my leg, and I fucking freaked out again.
So now you're the weird guy on the train.
I wet myself, Drew.
And then someone opposite you thought they saw a tarantula between your legs.
Inception.
And so it continues.
The circle of life. Drew, what's freaked you out this week?
Are you alive, and do you have legs?
I am fully alive. I am fully alive. I didn't have anything quite as life-threatening as either of you seem to have had. I feel left out now that I'm fully...
Look behind you.
The night is young.
Off we go to Listener's Corner, which has been revised for this year but may have to be tweaked again to stop George Russell fucking it up. Let's start with Red Bull. But not because they dominated and Max roared off into the distance. No, they were dreadful and didn't make it out of Q2. What the hell was that all about? Tom Murray says, Red Bull had the chance to get the Constructors' Championship today and they blew it. absolute noobs. They'll never amount to anything. Wade van Noordwijk says, not surprised, the race where the FIA's new technical directive that clarifies how aero parts deform under load is enforced. Red Bull brings new parts and are now at Mercedes' zero pod level of not understanding how their car works. I'm sure Red Bull will get their catering team on the problem and will be back on form by Suzuka. Tim Renler says, next week we find out Red Bull and the FIA have made a secret agreement about bendy parts that shouldn't bend when they come last in Japan. What was this all about then?
It would be very easy to look at the fact that there was a sort of an FIA technical director saying, no more bendy parts or something, and then suddenly Red Bull are terrible, and draw some conclusions. It would be very easy to do that.
Can I?
Yeah, let's do that.
Red Bull have been fucking cheating. Cheating. I'm allowed 2 this week, Matt. One for Russell Brand and one for Red Bull.
I mean, you just used them both then, yeah, but...
Just a two.
Not that I'm equating cheat. No. Ignore that.
Stand down, lawyers. In fairness, there have been some people who, believe it or not, are more knowledgeable than we are about F1 that are saying, we know how it looks, but actually there probably are reasons why the Red Bull wasn't very good at this circuit. And to be charitable to them, it's been suggested that this is just a perfect storm of like, they didn't think they would be very good at this track, but it turns out they were even less good than they thought they were. And even when they put their apparently no longer legal parts back on the car or something, they were still crap, so it wasn't the new parts or something.
No, I don't believe this. Have you seen how uncrap Red Bull have been at every type of circuit?
They've been all right, yeah. In fairness, they've been all right previously.
So the idea that they can suddenly go, oh, we forgot what we're doing. Whoopsie. Oh, you're so...
The margin of error is too big, surely, to have just be down to that perfect storm. That maybe a second a lap, maybe dropping 2 or 3 grid places. Not this bad.
You might say that it doesn't seem credible, Drew. You might say that.
How are they gonna deal with Japan? It's gonna be very
That
exciting.
will be interesting. If they're suddenly really good again in Japan, then I think we have to go, okay, maybe it was just like it was their bogey track.
I think I'm gonna watch free practice.
Wow. Oh, holy shit. This is serious. You're gonna watch free practice.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll watch the race this time?
Hey, I watched the race this time. Live on my phone.
But that thing that we'd been talking about for ages of what would Formula One be like if we didn't have Red Bull?
Oh, it's
brilliant.
so
We
good.
actually got to sample it. It was so good.
It was fun. It was
close,
exciting. Yeah. It wasn't boring. There was
Up to the last lap,
Yeah.
exciting.
Do you remember the last time? Okay, right. There's something that's been bugging me with Formula One lately is that there's no long-standing records anymore. Like they'll say something like, "Oh, this is the first time Ferrari have had a 1-2," and they'll say something like, "Since last year." So you go, "This is the first time Lewis Hamilton was on the podium since 3 weeks ago." There's never any kind of like, "This is the first time the blah 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 since 1974," and I think there should be more things.
We almost had one. There was an outside chance of 3 British drivers on the podium.
That's what
and
made
that
me
hadn't
think of
happened
it,
since the 60s.
Because that was exciting.
For an extra
that
point,
that
who were
looked
those drivers?
Jackie Stewart.
Lando Norris and Lewis
That's
Hamilton.
right.
James Hunt and Graham Hill.
I actually don't know. I'm just wondering if anybody else did. I was going to bullshit my way through it.
I think Jackie Stewart was the most famous of the 3, but I couldn't tell you.
No, it was Graham Hunt. It was Graham Hill and James Hunt.
Was it?
I'm sure it was.
We'll never know.
We just have to go
If
back
only
to
we'd
the
I'm just going
access
to pick
to
3
we'll have
British
to-
drivers at random. It's
Max Chilton,
Yeah.
Jenson Button, John
Will
Surtees.
Stevens and John Surtees. Yeah. What a season that was.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure the first season we did the podcast, Jackie Stewart was still racing.
It was. That's right. Hungary 2015. Yeah, he was doing well. Wasn't in his best team anymore, but
But he wore a fucking branded shirt, didn't he?
of course he did. Yeah,
With a striped
I may have said
tartan
this
and
before,
Royal
but
Bank of
I don't
Scotland.
know if you've read his book, which is actually worth a read. He gets his shirts personally tailored so that the sleeve on his left hand is slightly bigger, so it shows off his Rolex better. Jesus, because he's sponsored by Rolex. And not to be a dick, but I once had a custom shirt made for me, and I asked them to do the same thing because I thought it would make me more like Jackie Stewart.
Except you haven't got a
Or
watch.
it might make your sleeves look too short.
Yeah.
No, just too, just too,
It looked like
just
you're
too baggy.
wearing-
It just looks like I have one wizard sleeve. Not a euphemism.
That's what Danny Ricciardo did. Look what happened to him.
I don't feel like we can properly draw a conclusion on this whole Red Bull thing until this coming weekend, as we record this in Japan. That's
Okay.
as you say, it's gonna be first practice in Japan. If suddenly Verstappen's like half a second faster than everyone again, it's like, okay, fine, we'll accept all the excuses. But if they are anything other than utterly dominant in Japan, we're going to be pointing fingers and jumping up and down.
But then what happens? Because
Then
they've not technically
game on, because they'll be shit and everyone can theoretically catch them.
Yeah, but they're too far ahead.
Are
I
they?
mean, no one's going to win the champ. I don't know. Can someone else make a chantle? Championship
Can
difference?
someone else make a chantle? That's what we're asking.
Can Chantal make a chantle? That's all I asked for. I don't know.
Mathematically, it's possible, but it's one of those circumstances where they can score no points for the rest of the
But
season.
that could
Imagine
happen.
if that
If you'd have
happened.
said at Monza, and I'm probably repeating something we've got in the script later on. If you'd have said at Monza, well, next race Red Bull are not going to get out of Q2, either of them, and they're going to be absolutely anonymous, you'd have said, fuck off. That's absolute bollocks.
Do you think that Perez hasn't had bendy wings all year? That's why he's shit. They've just been giving the bendy wings to Max.
Well, that's a conspiracy that I don't really care
Do you
about.
reckon Max is shit?
What if it turns out, after all this, he's a master of illusion?
He's someone who wrote into whatever the Dutch equivalent to Jim will fix it is.
Drew, that's your cue. What's the Dutch equivalent of Jim will fix it? Just translate Jim will
I
fix
don't
it.
think there was... Sorry, I'm just seeing that there's a guy outside trying to deliver a Deliveroo and we haven't ordered anything. So I'm
Free
wondering what
food.
this guy's doing.
There's the tarantula in the box.
So no, the Dutch equivalent of Jim will fix it didn't exist because they were very wary of having necrophiliac paedophiles on air and Dutch TV. So
he's never been convicted in a court of law. So let's
Yeah, I don't like this trial by media.
exactly.
Yes, I gather that some people are still on the fence about whether or not Jimmy Savile was a horrible human being. But no, there was. I think it was a fairly unique show. And plus, in the Netherlands, you could receive BBC One, so you could watch Jim will fix it if you really wanted to indulge.
And he...
I'm genuinely.
Fair
I mean,
enough.
I'm always looking forward to Japan anyway because it's a good race. But I'm as you said, Terry. I'm like I might have to whack FP1. Oh, it's in the middle of the night though, isn't it? Hang on, what time's FP1?
Oh, it's Japan.
Oh, do
Yeah,
I want to
that's
watch
the
it
best,
that
that's-
much to wake up in the middle of the night to watch FP1? Oh,
That's the nostalgia of getting up at 7 in the
oh,
morning.
it's on
to
at
watch
3:30 in the
Cross
morning
Crash.
on Friday. Oh no, I don't care that much.
I'm still up.
You were just getting back from Berghain at that
Berlin.
point.
That's
yeah.
Whatever.
no, you're just getting started at Bergheim at 3 in the morning.
No, you don't go to Berghain until Sunday morning if you live here.
While Red Bull were doing the unthinkable and fucking up, Ferrari were also doing the unthinkable and not fucking up. In fact, Carlos Sainz only went and won the bloody race. Dixon Cock says, Ferrari not go boom? Was the guy in charge of fucking things up for them off sick today? Ross Chaplin says, okay, Carlos, it's plan H for holy shit, we did a good strategy. Daniel Foster says, have Ferrari suddenly remembered how to strategy? I'm sure normal service will be resumed at the Japanese Grand Prix in Japan.
It's like Singapore is like this weird alternate universe where up is down and left is right.
But wasn't it
Yeah,
Singapore?
bizarro world.
Wasn't it Singapore where Mercedes, in their dominant era, qualified at the back one year?
It was
their
never a good
tyres
track for them, was
turned
it?
on or
I
something?
think it is. It is a track of quite weird peculiarities because it's super tight and twisty like Monaco, and as we saw in qualifying, like the track evolves like nothing else. Like within the space of like 5 minutes, they'll suddenly find a second. So maybe it is just like a weird place where physics don't work normally.
But I do like Dixon's comment because what if it just gave me an idea that what if in the height of the McLaren Ferrari, war, McLaren paid somebody, let's call him Giuseppe, to be a adjutant, to fuck things up on
An
purpose.
agent provocateur.
for McLaren. That's the word I meant to use. I thought if I did a
Yeah.
French accent, the right
To
word
be
would
some
come out
sort
of
of
my mouth.
La Rochelle.
he's a bit of a Galois. And
Petit maison dans la poubelle.
A petite rivalry. And and what if he's just still on the McLaren payroll?
It's just some old bloke smoking cigarettes in the back every now and again, just
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Fiddling with code on the computer.
Just going, I wouldn't pit that if I were you.
Just walks around in the evening and pisses in the autoclaves.
Don't worry, mate. Don't get the tyres out. They're not coming into a pit stop. Oops.
That's Giuseppe's accent, is it? Is the point that Giuseppe is actually British?
Yeah, he's just a bloke called... All right, my name's Giuseppe. All right, how you doing?
Buongiorno.
I'm gonna be in charge of all this stuff that could go wrong.
Yeah.
And
Avanti.
I'm gonna fall through this bar. Avanti. Monge 2, Rodney.
So do we think that there'll be a complete reset for both Ferrari and Red Bull by the next race? That Red Bull will be back on top, Ferrari will fuck up again, or do we think they could both be duking?
If I was a betting man, and thankfully the dogs trust I'm not, I would say that it will be back to normal next week. But it's been so weird because not only were Ferrari good, it was the wrong Ferrari that was good. It was Carlos Sainz that was really good, and Leclerc was like, I mean, he got fourth, but he only got fourth because Russell, Spannerdale, and the Red Bulls weren't there. So I don't know. I mean, I really want it to be like, no, everything's changed now. But
do you remember that year? Well, I think it was the Brawn year when Jenson Button won the championship, and the first kind of 10, 15 races, whatever there was.
Yes,
they just won every race.
Didn't they?
And then Red Bull started to.
Well, didn't they ban something? I can't remember now. Did they ban something, or did they just run out of?
I think they ran out of money.
Well,
I think
they only had a quid or something, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
Is that how it worked?
And I think Red Bull had just been developing, and that was in the years when Red Bull would always get better at the end of the season. Yeah. And so Red Bull were kind of winning every race. Vettel was winning every race, and then I think it was in Japan that Button just scraped the championship with like a 5th place finish or something, because the Red Bull, the Broads suddenly weren't 1 and 2 in every race easily. And I feel like it'd be fun if that happened. If we had the remaining races, just Verstappen finishing like 11th.
Well, that'd be another weird thing,
7th.
because as you say, Red Bull for so long, it was like there was their thing. As sure as Perez is good on tyres, Red Bull will get better towards the end of the season. That was the thing. Not they'll nearly win the championship and then completely forget how to do everything.
They've just front-ended all their budget. Maybe that's it. Maybe they just run out of money. Maybe this week they just run out of money.
They've hit the budget cap and, the secret catering team has got nothing.
Yeah, if you run out of money, and it's just like, right. I mean, I guess there's running costs. As long as you've got your running costs in the budget, you can still turn up to a Grand Prix and be shit. That's what's happened to Aston Martin.
Tell us how wrong we are. You can tweet us at For F1's Sake, or find us on Facebook where we're For F1's Sake. Or email us at wrong@ff1s.com, where you can also leave us a team review. Just email a voice note to wrong@ff1s.com. Alternatively, if you think we're right, then why not buy us a beer? We may spend it on booze, or maybe a down payment on some electricity bills. Either way, it supports the making of this show. That's what Bob Freeman did, who says, given that Perez is currently no threat to Max, who would give Max more of a challenge in the Red Bull seat? I'd say Hamilton, Norris and Albon. Possibly Alonso.
Hamilton and Verstappen in the same car would be fucking outstanding. I mean, the same type of car, not literally the same car. That'd be awkward.
What if they were in the 2-seater car together, but whoever...
That would be even better. Maybe that should be... There you go, Terry. Here's one for you, Terry. You can have this one. If you're doing really well in the championship, you have to run a 2-seater.
But the 2-seater is specially set up that whoever steers hardest gets control.
Is it like dual control, like a driver's learning a driver's car?
No. One has to drive, one has to brake. We're going to teach you about teamwork.
I mean, I love this idea. But yeah, I mean, of all those drivers you've mentioned, I think Hamilton and Verstappen are the 2 top tier drivers. So to have them in the best car would be brilliant, but it'll never happen. And frankly, if you're Red Bull management, nor should you get anyone who's any good. Because
sorry, Bob. Sorry, Bob, if that's your real name. It's never going to happen. Of the rest you say of the list, I think Norris might go to Red Bull, and I think he's going to fuck with Verstappen.
I don't think so. I think he's going to go to Audi in a couple of years.
Well, I mean, we can talk. Obviously, we're doing a lot of talking in the beer bit, but it seemed like a dead cert you go to Audi with McLaren being shit, but McLaren are getting a little bit good again.
Yeah, but do you trust them to get good enough? Because where were they in the last race? I seem to remember not anywhere particular.
Or do you trust Audi, who used to be Sauber?
It's a good point, and it's well made.
Thanks.
Norris has been on the podium a whole bunch of times this season.
Exactly.
Just look at all the broken trophies, and he's a solid driver. He's outperforming his teammate in a car that isn't the fastest out there. Him in the Red
his
Bull
rookie teammate, in fairness,
extremely
he's
exciting.
outperforming his rookie, talented but rookie teammate. But yes, maybe he has got the sort of appetite for destruction now, and he'll want more trophies to destroy. Anyway, thanks, Bob.
And to these fine listeners who have Jason R. Bradley,
Yay!
David Finley,
Yay.
Jade Establio,
Estible,
Gabriel Rosencooter, Michael Rigby, Paul
Riggers,
Ewings,
Huey,
Marble 127,
Marbles,
Jennifer Brightman,
Oh.
Michael Perry,
Perry,
Greg Hoffman, and Donald Griffin.
Griffin.
If you like them and bask in our adulation, join our patrons by heading to ff1s.com/pint. Come on the team's end of streak as it seems, and Ferrari, they loved everything. The tactics did work, except for Leclerc. We're just happy that no Red Bull showed up. Ferrari, just like Monza, Carlos Sainz got a great pole, and unlike last week, he managed to convert it into a win.
Whoa. Right, Drew, you've presented this show I don't know how many times, and that is the first time you've ever done a team song that I actually recognise.
It wasn't random Dutch Europop from the 90s.
Yeah, so I'm very happy. I once did that during karaoke when I was 19 and trying to impress someone and realised that I didn't know any of the words.
Well, that was number one in the British charts exactly 41 years ago. There you go.
Oh, fact.
Yeah. Actually, well, the original version, not my remake. My remake has failed to chart. Ferrari, just like Monza, Carlos Sainz got a great pole. Unlike last week, he managed to convert it into a win, showing some skill and panache while doing it. Charles Leclerc, meanwhile, was off the pace compared to Sainz again. Are the Ferrari number 1 and 2 positions in danger of swapping over?
Yes.
No, contractually no, but actually yes.
I think when the new contracts come up, which is, as we all know, at some point, I think they're going to go, well, hang on, Charlie, you've been kind of off the ball lately, and Charlie and Carly's been doing pretty well.
You're so vain. You probably think this win was about you.
That's good. Took me a second. But yeah.
I think that Leclerc will leave Ferrari, as all the other big names have left Ferrari, and I think Sainz might be the next big Ferrari hope. Because if you think about it, the people who actually have been the big Ferrari kind of successors, apart from Schumacher, which ruins my point before I made it, aren't the ones that are hyped, I was going to say. Like Kimi Räikkönen.
Who else has done well at Ferrari? He says, desperately trying to think of anyone that's ever done well at Ferrari in the last 30 years. Kimi Räikkönen. Schumacher.
Mansell a bit.
Yeah, but not really. That's not even his best season.
Gerhard Berger.
Never won a championship.
Michele Alboreto. Gilles Villeneuve.
Never won a championship. Died.
Oh,
it's not looking great, is it?
Ferrari.
Where would Leclerc go?
Why does everyone want to drive for Ferrari?
I don't know. I don't know why they do. The magic of Ferrari.
No, I think Leclerc will go to Audi.
Oh.
Yeah, you see, that's actually not a bad call, is it? Because, he's a top flight driver, but he needs a fresh challenge.
Alongside Norris?
Maybe alongside Norris.
Will go there? That would be a fucking great driver lineup.
Yeah, no, I think Norris is going to go to Red Bull. I think
we're
going to have Leclerc at Sauber / Audi with Bottas. Why not? George Russell. Maybe George Russell's going to get fired at this rate.
No, I don't think so. Up until the point where he spectacularly fucked it, I think he did well. But we'll get to him.
All right, sorry.
Ferrari, give them their credit. they got it right this weekend, at least with Sainz.
Well, it really looked like they were going to get it.
Himself did really well as well.
Yeah, they really looked like they were going to get it wrong because they were doing that like deliberately slow pace, and it was just like all I could think is you're just giving it to Max. Max is going to have like
is this towards the end or
no? That like the whole race really. They didn't do a super fast pace, and then there was just this point where I was thinking it's going to be one of those races where you go and make a cup of tea and you come back and there's been like all the pit stops and Max Verstappen's 30 seconds in the lead and you're like I have no idea how. It's just what happened.
It's inevitable.
But I was wrong.
What I was particularly impressed by with that sort of however many laps, I don't know, let's say 20 lap chase towards the end, was that Sainz was continually sort of on the edge of being in DRS with Norris behind him, I should say. And I was like, oh, he's really struggling. Norris is going to be all over him. And then he came on the radio and he said, yeah, I'm doing it deliberately. And it turned out that was the tactic, that he was trying to get Norris to be within his DRS range so that he was harder to overtake for the Mercedes. Because I think he knew if the Mercedes got past Norris, then he was basically fucked. But if they were stuck in a DRS train with Norris, he'd be... I was like, wow, that takes quite a lot of situational awareness.
Well, the thing is, with Sainz over the last couple of years has done a lot of radio messages. God, I can't speak today. Sainz over the last couple of years has done a lot of radio messages where he's more aware of the race than the team that have got all the computers in front of him, which doesn't make any sense. And I'm starting to think...
Which a Ferrari is not that difficult, in fairness.
Well, Ferrari, he's like, can you turn the monitor on? No, you see.
It's Giuseppe in front of like a 486 from the early 90s going, I'm just playing Super Monaco.
I'll get it working in a minute. Don't worry, lads. I'm starting to think that Sainz might be the real deal. Maybe he's going to be one of these drivers who sort of grows into it. Like so many of the big hitters over the years, you know immediately as soon as they come in. Like Verstappen was amazing immediately, Senna was amazing immediately, blah blah blah. Maybe Sainz is going to be one of these guys who just builds and learns and builds and learns and builds and learns and just gets to the point where it's like, no, I'm really good at everything now. It's taken me a while, but I got there. That'd be good if he is. And he's got good hair.
Has he got the best hair on the grid? Because I rather like George Russell's new hair. It looks pretty good.
I didn't see it because it was covered in tears when I looked.
Tears and bits of wall.
Red Bull. For more on Red Bull's comedy failings, let's go over to our premium energy drink correspondent, Don Janacek.
Red Bull. Starting in the unfamiliar recesses at the back of the grid, we knew Singapore was going to be a different race for Red Bull. Of course, Max started working his way up as soon as possible, but that's about as far as his luck held out. They waited all that time for new tires only for Ocon to cause a yellow, lodging them in 12th and 14th, while everybody else donned new tires under yellow. They just couldn't keep up on old rubber, and this ended Red Bull's record-breaking run. Do we feel even a little bad for them?
No.
I do. I do feel a little tiny, because we were talking the other week about they've won so many, they may as well win all the races. And I was
is that, but it's gone. As soon as it was obvious that it was gone, I was like, something's happened.
That was literally what you said at the end of your last state of F1. It's like, go on, win the rest of on your side. That'll do it for them. And then the very next race, they come nowhere. You're becoming prophetic.
Well, Leclerc to Audi. What could I say?
There's a few years before that needs to come to fruition. This seemed a fairly immediate result to your premonition.
Let's see if I can do it again, okay? George Russell, shit yourself. I just like to think he's having dinner in Monaco, and he's like, oh, God, I'm really sorry. I don't know.
We're like a voodoo doll. The voodoo doll of F1 podcasts.
Except it's just drivers shitting themselves. Imagine if that was your superpower. You could make anybody shit themselves.
Anywhere in the world at any point.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd have a lot of fun with that. I don't think that would get old.
Well, what would your superhero name be?
Shitty man.
The Brown Ranger.
But what if your nemesis was somebody who, whenever you made someone shit themselves, they made you shit yourself?
It starts getting complicated canon now, doesn't it?
And
but if you're in control, you can be already on a toilet and just do it like over distance.
But what if you're in the street and someone like cuts you off and you get really angry? You're like, what? Oh. Or you don't need a nemesis. You can make anyone in the world shit yourself, but whenever you do it, you shit yourself. Welcome to For One's Sake, the Formula One podcast.
Speaking of endless circles of shit, have we got anything to say about Sergio Perez?
Oh.
Hashtag satire.
Well, no, there was this whole thing with him crashing into, what's his name at the end, which I kind of...
Albon. Yeah,
Albon,
well, he spun it in
wasn't really
practice
recovery.
and he binned it into Albon. And nobody really noticed because the Red Bulls were already terrible. I think he sort of got away with it.
And also, Verstappen did kind of get away with a couple of penalties on Friday. I mean, I'm not doing the old Ferrari
yes.
International Assistance, Red Bull, whatever they call the FIA with Red Bull with a hilarious Twitter abbreviation. But, come on, the guys.
What was weird about that is that it wasn't consistent with previous penalties. That's what
Exactly.
annoyed me.
Yes.
That was a bit suspect. I've forgotten what the previous point was. What was the previous point?
Perez, shit, innit?
Yeah, I had a point to make, but I've forgotten what it was. Which, basically says everything we need to say about Sergio Perez.
I like that from Red Bull's perspective, that they took a punt on going with the hard tires and trying to. They knew, it's Singapore. There's going to be a safety car. It's going to come at some point, and just making a gamble on when that came, and they just got it catastrophically wrong. But they could have got it right.
Yeah, they kind of had to, didn't they? They were in a position was like, well, we might as well just go for absolute broke here. And in fairness, actually, Verstappen particularly, in the last stint, was he on the mediums maybe? Was actually going pretty well. Like he made up quite a few places, but the trouble was it was while all the fun was going on at the front, so nobody really paid much attention. But he was actually catching up pretty well and looked pretty quick. But it was obviously way too late.
McLaren, sometimes good, sometimes meh, season continued with a bag of upgrades for Norris and not much for Piastri. But they seem to work, with Lando getting second row in quali and second place in the race, while Oscar wrestled his vintage car up to 7th from 17th on the grid after being nobbled by Stroll's crash in Q1.
It was good from Norris. Very good.
Well, I think the thing that Norris has got going for him is that no fucker can ever overtake him.
He is
what he
quite
does.
good at doing that.
Yeah, I don't know what he does, but I remember wasn't there a year where Lewis was kind of in his first year, when Norris was in his first year, Lewis was like, "Oh, that driver is very good, young man."
There is an art to driving in that kind of defensive way, and I remember years and years ago I was in a kart race, and there was a guy that was on track who I knew was way better than me, but he was in one. It was rental karts, and he got the shit one. Like it was just really slow on the straights, but he could put that thing in a place in the corners that you just could not get past him. It was so frustrating because you knew you were quicker than him, but you could not get past. And I can only assume that the very best defensive F1 drivers have got that down to an absolute T. And Norris does appear to be very, very good at it, especially on a narrow track like Singapore.
And listeners, that driver was me.
Actually, he was clutching his ribs the whole way round.
No. I mean, I was you.
Oh, I see.
Your memory is mine.
It's got quite meta quite quickly.
Did Norris clip the wall very lightly just before Russell did?
He did exactly the same as Russell did, but just a little bit less.
I mean, that's almost like the bluff, like the tactical way to keep someone behind, just going, "Oh yeah, you can go just this wide."
Oh my God, yeah. Do you reckon he did
That's
that?
precision driving.
He did it on purpose.
Oh, that would be great.
He deliberately took like a shonky line to try and bait the other person into following, because that is sometimes the danger when you're on computer games, on karting, or in real racing, I guess. Like you can almost just deliberately follow what the other person is doing. Like you follow their braking points, you follow their lines, whatever, as you try and stick behind them. And maybe he was just like, I reckon if I go slightly too close to this wall, I could make him crash.
I would love to think they did it on purpose.
Me too.
I think
that would make my fucking day.
Absolute master criminal. The most dastardly driver.
Do you think Lewis could have got past him if Russell had come out a lap or two earlier?
I think in that final dash that Lewis was faster, and I think that if they were the other way round, I would have probably backed Hamilton to get past Norris earlier, and to maybe even have got past Sainz. Like by the time Russell crashed, it was over. Like he might have got Norris, but there was no way he was going to catch Sainz. Whereas I suspect if, in the previous, 5-6 laps, whatever it was, that Hamilton was in that position and Norris was behind him, I don't know. I have more faith in Hamilton of being able to do those kind of moves.
He did seem to be catching up at that point, and he gave the politest, gentlest radio message going, I think George needs to pick up the pace.
Yeah.
But it's not like aggressive, it was just
it's
polite.
not like he was faster than him all weekend. You know, he'd been slightly behind him for a while, but it just seems like in qualifying, I think he said it himself actually, like Hamilton has not quite been on it in the last few races, and we've commented that maybe he's not quite at his absolute prime, but in the race he was looking super good, and he certainly towards the end of the race on those tyres. I mean, it's difficult because, like, if you were the Mercedes strategy guys, you wouldn't have said, "Oh, guys, maybe you can switch, and we think that would be better." Like that wouldn't go down well at all. But
no,
not
it's for podium position.
No, but I can't help thinking, what if Hamilton had sort of opened that door of getting past Norris, and then probably I think maybe Norris would have he wouldn't have had the help from Sainz to keep the DRS train. I think maybe Hamilton would have pulled out because they were so much faster on that spare set of tyres. Because that was right, they had an extra set of tyres at the end, didn't they, that the others didn't have. That was why they were so quick. We'll never know.
Yes, and again, that was the thing where I think it was Martin Brundle talking about their extra tyres. You're like, oh, it's never going to happen. And then they had the safety car or the virtual safety car at the exact right moment. It was a real
fucking jackpot.
It really was. You know, that never really happens. It's a bit like rain.
It was just one of those races where, they were predicting rain at one point, weren't they? It never happened.
That would have been good.
I mean, it would, but to be honest, it was good enough where, like, it was another one of those things where all the different strategies sort of coalesced at the end.
Yeah.
And you didn't quite know how it was going to go. And then when you did know how it was going to go, Russell livened things up anyway by bidding it. So it was a good one. Best race of the year.
I genuinely couldn't believe that Russell threw it into a wall. Like, when I saw the pictures, and maybe because I was watching it on my phone, so it's tiny screen. But when I saw that, I just couldn't believe that he would do that. Not because I think he's great, just because it's so embarrassing.
It was a pretty big mistake.
Yeah,
it was.
That close to the end as well. I mean, we've been laughing at it a little bit, but you'd be crushed.
How many laps were in the race? Do we remember? I can't remember.
62.
62. So between
62.
all the rest of the race and qualifying and all the practice laps, you must have done a couple of 100 times through that corner.
Yeah.
And the very last time you're going to do it, you smack it into the wall.
But it's everything. It's all the times you've done that lap. It's all the weight you've lost to the water, the stress of keeping your teammate behind but catching up to Norris, and then within 90 seconds of the race being over, you just
and it was
the
a
wall.
matter of couple of centimeters, if that.
Yeah. And that's all it took. Just completely. You saw it as soon as he clipped that whole front suspension. Just went.
I mean, it's almost the same as when they come out of the swimming pool in Monaco, isn't it? But it's usually in practice, like they always clip the wall when they're trying to figure out how close, and then it sends them into the wall opposite the grandstand. It's almost the same thing. But
talking of getting out of swimming pools, George Russell, to me, seems like the type that would use the stairs or the ladder and not just kind of hawk himself
put
up
your knee up on the side.
hurl himself out like some sort of elephant seal.
Yeah, just starts crying. I'm very much in favour of help for mental health and all the rest of it, and I really shouldn't be mocking a grown man crying on television, because I should be saying this is what men need to be able to do, is to accept that crying is fine. But I can't get over the fact I hate George Russell, and it's really funny.
Was he actually crying? I didn't actually see that bit.
Yeah, in the interview he was basically crying.
Oh
no, now I sound like a right dick.
yeah, you do.
Anything can set anyone, in particular men, off crying. I listened to Everybody's Free to Wear Sunscreen for the first time in ages, and the lyrics to that, as a man in his 40s now, hit so much harder that I was in tears listening to that. Anything can set you off.
Maybe you'll make the corner, maybe you won't.
Mercedes. Oh, George, the podium was there for the taking, even after the win was probably gone. All you had to do was avoid the wall, but because you saw Lando Norris hit it, you thought it would be cool. Well, it wasn't cool, and now you feel pretty silly, don't you? Now Lewis has the podium, and maybe, just maybe, he could have done even better if you weren't trying to play the hero. Fair?
Very fair. Let's talk about it all again. No. Yes. Just, George. Curious George. What would that... The story of Curious George, where the boy thought, what would it feel like to sweat my car into a podium? It would feel sad.
I mean, it'd be better if he threatened his car into the podium.
Oh my God.
That would be the ultimate irony if he lost the podium by crashing into the podium.
I'm very tired.
But yeah, I think we've covered it. I mean, good drive from Hamilton. I mean, good drive from Mercedes. I mean, they were only there because Red Bull had fucked it up, let's be honest. But we've said it all the time. Like the teams who are going to snipe stuff here and there have got to be ready to perform when the top teams fuck it up. And both Ferrari and Mercedes did it, and McLaren, in fairness. And that's what made it so fun, is that everybody, if only Red Bull weren't there. Oh, it'd be such a good season.
I know. Maybe next year.
Well, be careful what you wish for. Alpine. Esteban Ocon had to retire for the second...
I just wish that you shut yourself. Definitely weren't my end. How about you, Drew?
There may be an international delay on that. Time difference. Check back with me in an hour.
The delivery guy outside your door just shut himself. I aimed it wrong.
Alpine. Esteban Ocon had to retire for the second race in a row after his gearbox failed, knackering what was a pretty good weekend for Alpine after being shit in Italy. Shittily. Teammate Pierre Gasly wasn't as quick, but still managed 6th, which is pretty good for a team comically falling apart at the seams, but somehow managing to upgrade their car and make it reasonably fast.
I like to think that Alpine is full of actually really talented people who are fighting against unfathomably idiotic management to put together something vaguely decent. And each week it's just... I'd like to see a sitcom based in the Alpine factory, is what I'm saying.
That would be amazing.
And because they're in France, you could do the full hello treatment, which we all know we love.
Good morning, Lawrence Rossi.
It's me, Esteban Econ.
Utmost enough now, sir. It's a club. So here's an aside, because I can't be asked to talk about Alpine. I was at work today doing a workshop about maps, because I'm a very exciting man.
What a guy.
And they needed to do some stuff about YouTube, and they were looking at YouTube thumbnails. So I pulled up on my laptop, opened YouTube, and there was a massive picture of Hermann Goering, because I've been watching some wartime documentaries, and I was in a room full of Germans. Anyway, end of story.
I've got this really interesting map of Poland.
What, you don't recognise it? Oh.
A map of the continent with these arrows coming from Britain.
However we decided, we've just got to make sure we've got Lebensraum. Yeah, that went down very well. I cannot work out Alpine at the moment.
Look, they're just in a death knell. There's a power
They
vacuum.
are, but they keep doing really well. They keep doing well while being comically hilarious.
Well, the car is okay, as far as I can tell. It's a bit like Ferrari, but less obvious. I think it's not. If Ferrari, they fuck up the strategy, they fuck up the pit stops, and they fuck up, the when to do stuff. Alpine, they fuck up a little further back, I feel. So it's like a whole weekend is fucked. They'll fuck up with some setup things that we don't really get to see or understand. We just see if they're fast or slow. And I think the car, if they had a team that didn't keep firing everybody, I think the car could actually go quite well. But it's just a proof that Formula 1 isn't just about the car, is it?
But
it's about the people.
But they have been. I'm looking at their results from this season, and they have been properly all over the place. Yeah. Like they've had 2 podiums, numerous retirements. Maybe 6 retirements. Mm-hmm. A lot of outside the points, a lot of in the points. It's like the broadest spread, I think, of any team on the grid. Like you could roll a dice and not necessarily know whether it's going to be accurate or not. That's not a good analogy. But I think they're the most inconsistent team.
Yes. No, I think inconsistent is a good word for them.
The mostest inconsistent.
AlphaTauri. Live from Fenza, here's Jamie McNaught.
AlphaTauri. Progress. Tsunoda looked promising in qualifying, reaching Q2 until his big ball brothers bullied him and probably told him to keep stewing the inquiries afterwards. As for the race, progress! He made almost half a lap before his big ball brothers bullied him and probably told him to keep stewing the inquiries afterwards. Lawson got his first points on a tough track he's never driven. That's great. Not as great as Danica Patrick saying in an interview that his mum looks young enough to be his sister, to which Lawson pointed out that wasn't her. He then pointed out his old leathery mum before Danica waited a whole 10 seconds before saying, "Oh yeah, her too. Best part of the weekend for me."
I missed that. I feel bad that I missed it.
Liam Lawson. He's smashing it.
He is.
Surely he's got to be...
He is.
We've got to keep him.
Yeah, he is fucking up Daniel Ricciardo's career race
He
by
is
race.
massively, isn't he? I'm thinking that surely there are a lot of people within F1 going, we need to think of a way to get Liam Lawson in F1 next year. How do we do it? So, Terry, how are you going to do it?
Easy. Get rid of Daniel Ricciardo.
You reckon? You reckon they'll do that? Because I'm not disinclined to agree with you.
There's talk that he needs a year somewhere, so they'll give him a year in a lesser team. So they'll pay
Lesser team than AlphaTauri?
Well, they'll give a lesser team money-wise. I mean, they'll chuck Williams some money and get rid of. I can't remember who the second driver is for Williams.
Sargent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the easy option. The second option is Ricciardo goes to Red Bull, Perez gets fired, and he drives at AlphaTauri, which I don't think will happen. And I think what's most likely with Red Bull's history, is that they're just going to shove him in the Red Bull next year, and then he'll be fired by halfway through the season.
That is the worry, isn't it? While I think he needs to stick around, I absolutely do not put him in the Red Bull, because it's the second Red Bull seat is the Ferrari of Red Bull seats.
Unless
ruin your career.
Unless without bendy wings, because he did out qualify Max Verstappen this weekend, and that's
true. Yeah.
That's not a bad. That's not
had
a bad
bit of a
thing to have
battle
on
with
your
him on
resume.
track as well for a few corners as well.
Exactly. So that's not a bad thing on your
I
resume.
think he's really handled this whole thing really, really well.
Yeah,
it'd be very easy to him to not. And when you think that Nick De Vries got a full race seat based on one race.
Yeah, and you know what? I haven't followed Liam Lawson's career very closely, and I'm going to be honest, with all my years of Formula One watching, I thought he'd be shit just because his name's got the same initials. I just thought
Alliterative names, yeah.
when has there ever been a good driver with alliterative initials?
I wish I had 20 minutes to figure this out.
I can't think of any.
There's got to be some.
Damon Hill? Nope.
No. Freddie? No. Manny Mansell? No, doesn't work.
See?
Sammy Senna?
See? Sammy Senna. I can't think of any, actually.
There's got to be... Oh, this is going to drive me up there. You do the rest of the podcast. I'm going to Google it for the next 20 minutes.
Email us at wrong@ff1s.com if there were any alliteratively named drivers who are also good. I'm not having some, I think you're fine. In the Indy 500 in 600 in 1967, there was Billy Big Bollocks or whatever. He was a good driver.
Alexander Albon.
Oh, shit, there's one in this year's
There's literally
season.
one on the grid.
For
Okay.
fuck's sake. Drew, you're supposed to make us look good.
Alberto Ascari,
Oh, fuck you all.
2-time world champion. Yeah.
I think we're looking at the same list.
Pretty Patel.
Bobby Ball, who did the Indy 500 twice in 1951 and 52.
Whoa. Are you serious?
Yes.
Bobby Ball, as in
Yeah.
Cannon.
Not that one.
Rock on, Tommy. Phil, you always complain that this podcast becomes like weird 80s references, and now you're just putting one in my lap. Hey, rock on, Tommy. I watched a whole thing, a YouTube series about Cannonball, which involved a critique of the first episode. Of their
Have you
TV
been
series.
bored?
No, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give a recommendation. If you listen to this podcast and you enjoy my niche 80s comedy references, follow a YouTube channel called a guy called Stuart Millard, because he makes these little mini documentaries on basically nostalgic telly, and they're wonderful. And the best one is the one that has Noel Edmonds on telly next to a giant swastika. That's all I'm going to say.
Colin Chapman. I know he's mostly a team owner, but he did do one race apparently.
Bill Brack, Canadian driver, had 3 starts.
He'd do. And some others. For more of us live Googling, subscribe. Somebody
Duke
move this on,
Dinsmore.
'cause
A
I'm
lot
not
of
gonna
them
do
seem
it.
to
I'm
be
gonna keep doing this
American.
until Matt tells us off.
Right. Okay. Haas.
Excuse me.
Once in a generation, Haas has a good race, and Singapore was that race, suiting the car's trait of being quick over one lap, but then shredding its tyres. The tyres held out. Kevin Magnussen remembered how to drive, qualifying 6th and scoring a point for the first time in ages. Hulkenberg couldn't hang on to the points, but we really don't mind.
Yeah, good on him.
I just don't know how they get away with it. Like, there was a bit in the commentary where I think it was Martin Brundle said, like, "Oh, Kevin Magnussen's just been shit for a few months." You're like, how are you an elite athlete at the top of Formula One and you're allowed to just be, quote, shit for a few months and they sign you for next year? I mean, we're talking about where Liam Lawson's going to go. Put him in a fucking Haas. You should get 20 drivers in that Haas.
Don't put him in a Haas.
I don't want Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hulkenberg to be in Formula One anymore. It was a funny joke that they got signed with the ball sucking thing, but it's a joke that's gone. I still use it in the standings every week, but it's a joke that's unfunny in real life with them both being in Formula One again. I hate it. Goodbye. Fuck off.
What you're saying is he needs some new material.
No, they need to fuck off.
Wow. I was thinking just a new show, workshop some new stuff, maybe to Edinburgh.
I just don't want them in my life anymore.
Wow, what, the whole team or just those two?
Those two. Kevin, Nico, I'm leaving you.
I think Nico had to have got a podium to redeem himself, and he hasn't.
Exactly, and the fact that he's just... I mean, imagine just coming back and driving and finishing whatever it was, 17th. Just fuck off. Just fuck off. I'm sick of you.
Williams. Alex Albon was all set for another point and maybe more before he was cannoned into by Sergio Perez. He's doing really well and continues to do really well. Logan Sargent didn't have a massive accident, and that's all we could really ask from him. I mean, yes, he hit the wall and lost his front wing, but managed to carry on. That's progress, right?
I think in the Logan Sargent scale, yes. Finishing the race eventually is progress. And 14th, admittedly, there were a lot of retirements. He beat Fernando Alonso.
There you go.
Not many people can say that.
True. I mean...
Felt slightly sorry for Albon. But yeah, I mean, he deserves to go somewhere. I don't know where he's going to go, but maybe he should go back to Red Bull again.
No, I think Albon's going to win the championship for Williams. No, I mean it.
Okay.
I feel...
This year or?
No, don't be silly, Phil. Next year.
Okay.
It's nice to have ambition. Alfa Romeo. Valtteri Bottas retired, but no one noticed. Zhou Guanyu was 12th. And no one noticed.
Didn't see him. I genuinely don't remember a single thing about Alfa. I can't even get the name of the team right. Alfa Romeo.
What is the fucking point of them apart from being a fucking holding page for Audi? That's all they are.
That's exactly what they are.
They're a rotating GIF in the 90s that says under construction. That's what they are.
Sick burn. Yeah. Aston Martin. Not a classic weekend for Aston Martin, wouldn't you say, Ray Glennon?
Aston Martin. What the fuck? I mean, what even the fuck?
Is that it? Amazing.
Amazing contribution, Ray.
Yeah, I mean, it summed it up pretty well. I mean, Lance Stroll, let's start with him, shall we?
He didn't even start the race, did he?
With his qualifying exploits.
I mean...
He properly binned it around that last corner.
Do you think his hands are still bad?
He's probably gone to some guy in Barcelona.
No, I mean, I'm not even joking. Do you think he just went back? Because he got back in the car too quick, I think. And he's been a bit shit all year. So I think he fucked things up at the start of the season. He should have taken a couple of races out.
I mean, there was actually, I seem to remember, when was it he was out and came back? I can't remember now.
Start of the season, wasn't it? Wasn't it?
Was it? Because
wasn't it last race?
Oh, was it?
That he didn't start because he had an injured hand.
Oh.
No, he hit the wall and he was just injured, and so they.
Well, it was in Singapore that this happened.
Oh right.
Yeah, he crashed in qualifying and didn't do the race.
So much happened. I thought it was a week ago.
But earlier in the season, he'd hurt his hand, and I swear there were a couple of races where they cut some footage of him like shaking his hands out as he's going round. And famously, when Ricciardo binned his hand, they were saying, "Oh, I'm not sure he's going to be back for Singapore because it's really tough on your hands." So, I mean, it's not inconceivable that his hand is still playing up, and he just forgot how to hold onto the steering wheel coming around the last corner. Although, in fairness, he did just beat you up on the thing and lose control. But it was a big old crash. And he's crap, yeah. It was a big old big old crowd. I'm trying to remember the last time where like they seem okay and they get out and then they go, actually, no, I can't race. That hasn't happened for a while, has it?
Danny Ricciardo.
No, I mean, he immediately was like, no, I'm definitely not okay. I've broken my hand off. But yeah, you know, I hope he gets better soon, or that they get somebody into his seat. Because he doesn't have long to get better. I assume it's just like he was a bit shaken up and he'll be fine for Japan, but
Japan
I don't even know who's their reserve driver. It's
Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, he's going to drive both cars.
Yeah.
No, there's I can't remember the guy's name. He's one of the is it Drugovich? Felipe Drugovich?
Yeah, yes.
All of which takes us to the standings with Terry Saunders.
Look, I haven't done the standings because there was a fucking tarantula on the train. So, you've got two options. Either I can record some standings tomorrow and we'll cut them in now, or I will just do standings based on things that are on my desk. So you two decide.
I mean, I suggest we do the latter, and if they're terrible, about now there'll be some pre-recorded.
Well, of course it's going to be terrible. Well, they just was going to have both. Okay, Max Verstappen is an old DSLR camera. Sergio Perez is a coffee cup that's been here for a week. Lewis Hamilton in third place is some bog roll. Not sure what that's there. Fifth place is...
We know why that's there.
I had a cold. Fifth place
Sure.
is a tiny hard drive. Sixth place is the most expensive thing I own. It's a set of printer ink cartridges. Seventh place is my phone. Lando Norris is in eighth place, which is some sunscreen. In ninth place is the fancy keyboard I brought. In 10th place is Pierre Gasly, which is my laptop. In 11th place is a camera lens, which is Oscar Piastri. My watch is in 12th place. It's not a Rolex and it's not an Apple Watch. It's a nice, cheap watch. And that's Esteban Ocon. Alexander Albon is an old film camera that I've got. I'm not a hipster wanker. I was just trying to take some pictures whilst I had some toilet roll here. And what's 15th place? It's a bottle of lube. And in 16th place, some latex shiner. 17th place, an iPhone charger. 20th place, my clip for my phone. I've forgotten who the drivers are. There's not even 20 drivers that have scored points. That's the end of the standings. And for the constructors, I don't know, what else can I look at? Let's go through my bin. First place, it's a packet of nuts wrapper. It's Red Bull. In second place, it's the wrapping to a toilet roll, because I subscribe to toilet roll and it comes individually wrapped. In third place, it's some raisins from the said pack of nuts and stuff that I hadn't got rid of. In fifth place, the McLaren in fifth place is a 20% voucher for cat food, but my cat doesn't live here anymore.
Whoa.
In sixth place is some bubble bath. My cat has moved into my partner's place. It's fine.
Wow.
In eighth place is Haas, which is a sock with a hole in.
Pretty apt.
In ninth place, ironically, is Alfa Romeo, which is the pair of that sock, also with a hole in. So they're still paired. They're still together. And finally, a ticket for... I don't even know what it's for. So yeah, I'll be recording some standings tomorrow, Matt.
Oh, that was good. You've done
I
worse.
thought after the roll of toilet paper on your desk, I just thought, I'm going to go through my bin. In first place, it's a used tissue. And in second place, it's a used tissue.
Yeah.
Third place,
It's another used
it's a
tissue.
sock
Well, if you listen back...
with a hole cut into it.
And now, the man of the match of driving.
Carlos
Sainz.
Sainz.
Oh!
And now, it's time for the State of F1 with Terry Saunders.
This I wrote before I saw a tarantula. In my last State of F1, I pledged my love, hope and support for Max Verstappen and Red Bull and their attempt at winning every race this year. The plan worked, and now look at them. Is it just that the Singapore track hates dominant cars, or if Red Bull, they flex their wings? We been shit. We won't know until Japan, and if they're similarly shit, we'll know this whole year has been a farce. And being F1 fans, we'll sort of howl, but ultimately take it, because teams always cheat, and in the end, we don't really care, because is it more important that the right team wins, or that the cheating team wins, but we feel vindicated and able to moan about it? That's the real victory here. But don't worry, I have a solution. It's time to mandate in the rules that all teams must cheat. But, like a sealed bid auction, the team that cheats the least is deemed the winner of the championship. An hour before the last race of the season, all the teams will have to publish all of their cheats, and a team of stewards, the bloke who photocopied all the Ferrari plans, and also Ron Dennis, will then award points based on creativity, audacity, and technology, and a really too complicated to explain equation will reveal the true standings before one last race with all cheats removed and double points.
I love it. Yeah, let's do it.
It's simpler than the fucking sprint race qualifying shit they're doing, isn't it?
No, it's great. I've missed double points. I forgot about them.
I know.
It's good. I'm up for an excuse to bring them back.
I'd be up for double points this year if Red Bull have gone shit and they could lose Verstappen the championship.
I reckon they should retrospectively do double points at Singapore.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, could it be that everyone gets to pick one rule that they get to cheat at? Yeah. You get to pick. Someone gets to do it on fuel rating or fuel levels, or someone gets to cheat on how many tires they use, and you get to pick which cheat you do.
Or you get to pick the cheat the other team does.
Oh, it's even better. Also, you get to pick which race you get double points at, but you have to nominate it in advance, like you're sort of pointing at a pocket and pull.
But also, that driver has to have shut themselves.
I think we're 99% of the way there. We just need to work out the fun details.
No, I think that's the definitely detail we need. I'd like to see a new racing series where all the drivers have to shit themselves before they get in the car. Because have you ever done that and you've shut yourself and you've had to sit down? It's not a nice feeling. That would really put you off your first corner.
Well, I think anyone who's been on boozy car launches, as I'm sure, Phil, you've been on a few in your lifetime, you've sat in a car in difficult circumstances the day after.
I've never shat myself in a car launch, if that's what you're saying.
No, I've had a couple of really dodgy mornings and not been fully ready to get in the car when I've had to get in the car.
Nice.
I do like the idea of cheating, though. I've always thought that the Olympics should have three versions: the Olympics, the Paralympics, and the Super Olympics, where you just take all the drugs you can to be the best you possibly can, and then just separate the drug taking from the non-drug taking.
I'm up for bringing that into F1. Like one driver has to take as many drugs as he can before the race.
But the drugs are nominated by me. So George Russell, before the Monaco Grand Prix, you're trying heroin.
Yes. It's like the draw for the World Cup. Number one, George Russell will be taking number 5, ayahuasca.
Oh no, could they all just be loaded up with something in the drinking bottles, and at some point Terry just triggers a button and they all get fed it at the same time? You just see lap times just disintegrate.
I love the power I have. I'm making drivers shit themselves and
injecting them with drugs.
Really high. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's all good stuff.
Well, that's it from us. It's goodbye to Phil Tromans.
Goodbye. We haven't had time to talk about, again, McLaren and their reserve driver, Alex Palou, because now he's refusing to go to any of their races despite being their reserve driver, and they're suing him. It's hilarious.
I know we haven't got time for this, but I haven't been following it, and it's fucking hilarious. Yeah, go. Yeah, what?
And to Terry Saunders.
We haven't got time for... I haven't thought of anything because there was a tarantula on the train.
I feel like you're milking this excuse.
Have you ever tried milking a fucking tarantula, Phil? It's terrifying.
If they got nipples, then I'll try.
We'll be back in a minute to discuss the Japanese Grand Prix in Japan. In the meantime, check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/for F1's sake, and follow us on Twitter @for F1's sake. Terry, where can people buy merch?
www.amazon.de because that's how you say it. Formula1s.com shop. FF1s.com.
Formula 1S, what?
Formula1s.com /shop. FF1s.com /shop.
There we go. We got them in the end. Thanks for listening. I've been Drew Stearne. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thanks
Thank you,
again, Drew.
Drew. Bye. Bye.